Hello, and welcome to an episode that I'm calling, That Is So Expensive, I Think I Can Make That Myself. I saw a dress about a year ago that I absolutely fell in love with, but the price was just so exorbitant, I just couldn't even think of buying it. So I thought, why not just make it instead? It is a dress by Lena Hochek. I'm bad at pronouncing names, I'm sorry. And it is called the Tessa Corset Linen Midi Dress. Sorry, it's on my computer. I was never going to remember that. Gorgeous dress. It has had a chokehold on me since I saw it a year ago, and I think it's finally time to attempt to make it myself. I finally found, I have this new favorite fabric. It's called lyocell. It comes in a good amount of like bed sheets, and I tend to make a lot of my clothing from bed sheets. Mostly thrifted, but this time I had to just get it on sale. And lyocell, which is the fabric, is a rayon type fabric. I think it's a wood pulp at least kind of fabric that gives off a silky texture with a little bit of stretch to it. So it's kind of the perfect mixture for me. I don't like really working with silk, and this is a little bit more substantial in my opinion than silk, but there's also a little bit of stretch to it, and it's cheaper by a lot, especially because you're buying it in a bedsheet form. And I actually considered making this into a corset and a skirt separately, but honestly, I just want to recreate it. I don't want to go off the beaten path. I want to see how close I can get to recreating this. So with that, let me rewind you, because it's been a few days, as you might be able to tell, and we'll meet back here. Let's go. So I thought the skirt would be easy enough to draft myself, but for the bodice, I'm using this corset pattern in the style C. I thought this would be a good jumping off point, but I would need to make a couple of changes. First off, this is a corset, and corsets are supposed to be an inch or two smaller than your body measurements usually, so I had to add a little bit of ease back to each piece, as well as make each piece a bit longer, as this corset is a bit short on me to begin with. I also played around with the neckline a bit and changed the shoulder straps so that they would be sewn together like a normal dress instead of the corset where it's tied at the front. For the skirt panels, I was only able to fit 2 on, which I thought at this point I actually wanted a slimmer fit. I'll talk about that more later though. And lastly, cut an inch from a couple of the finished edges on the flat sheet. What I did with that is I ironed that raw edge under, and once it's stitched together, these will become my tabs and lacings. Because in case this is your first video of mine, I hate zippers, and the original has a zipper, so we'll be trading that in for my favorite way to close a garment, which is lacing it up. I had to cut 2 of each pattern piece for an outer shell and lining, and at this point I added a layer of interfacing to the lining layer. Once I started putting the lining together, I noticed the back didn't quite fit right, so I had to do a bit of playing around with that. And sometimes you'll see there's like a long triangular piece that I added to the back. Then it was time to stitch the outer layer together, but the first step was to add the tabs for my lacings. It's been a while since I've walked through these steps, so I thought I'd just go ahead and do it here. So first you mark where you want your tabs to be placed on each side of the back panel. I usually find anywhere from 4 to 6 tabs to be the best, so that would be 8 to 12 tabs total. And you start start under the shoulder blades and end about an inch above the waist so that when you put the skirt together, you are not putting those lacings underneath your seam allowance. Then I took those tabs that you saw me cut earlier. These are about 3 inches long each and pinned them where the markings were, facing inward towards center back and the raw edges of the tabs, matching the raw edge of the back panel. Then I did a basting stitch about 1/4 inch in from the raw edge over the tabs. That way, when you do your actual seam allowance, you are going to cover that basting stitch. Lastly, I placed my side pieces over that and stitched the two together. And voila, you have a set of tabs for lacing.
I wish I could see the future, I wish I could see what's left. I know there must be an answer, or am I wasting what is left? And there is such thing as a vision of a story I'd like to live. But when you're stuck inside a prison, you never know how long to give. To think in negatives, I don't like to think too much. No need for any sedatives, but sometimes I feel messed up. And I like to think in positives, and that always seems enough. But there's far too much to think of when you're laying on your own. Yeah, there's far too much to think of when you're laying on your own. And I keep running away with words, and I clutter my head with clouds, and I shout till I get heard. And I keep thinking awful thoughts, and there's not that much to think about, and there's not that much to think about, and there's not that much to think about, and there's not that much to think about. I wish I could see the future, I wish I could see what's left. I know there must be an answer, or am I wasting what is left? And there is such thing as a vision of a story I'd like to live. But when you're stuck inside a prison, you never know how long to give.
Welcome back. It's been probably quite a few minutes for you. It's only been seconds for me. Welcome back. So I made the outer shell and the inner lining, and now what I'm gonna do is put them together. Is this right? Wait, no, this isn't. Wait, I'm going to sew the necklines together. So after the neckline is together, I'm going to do that top stitch, which I show a lot. Top stitch that goes 1/8 of an inch into the lining. I'll show you that. It's so that it folds over nicely. If you've never seen anyone do that, I'm sure that's very confusing what I just said, sorry. Then I'm going to baste stitch them together because these two layers are going to make the channels for my boning. A lot of people have been telling me to try this. I'm gonna baste them together so that they stay together, because the last time I tried a similar technique, they ended up getting all wonky on the inside. So I'm finally gonna try basting, like hand basting my pieces together. Yay for all of you that have been telling me to do that. I love to try to go as fast as I can just to see how quickly I can get something done, but honestly, I'm feeling really tired. So I just wanna take my time. So let's get started. Here's where I noticed once again that I had accidentally matched my dog. My dog got dressed first that morning, so this time it was my fault. Oh no, lip gloss. So here you can see after stitching the necklines together, I pin the seam allowance to the lining side and stitch at about 1/8 of an inch down from the last seam. If you ever notice your lining peeking out when wearing your garment, this little trick should do most of the fixing for that issue. It also just makes the final product look a bit more professional and a bit nicer. I then top stitched over the armholes to finish those off as well. Once I felt like I basted all the areas down that I needed to, I then started marking for my boning. Now I knew because of the bodice that I'd made that my boning wouldn't be able to look exactly like the original because of the princess seams, but I tried to make it somewhat similar by doing a set of boning, one on each side of center front, each princess seam, and one more set in between those two. Once those were stitched down, each 1/2 inch apart, I could take some of the basting off. I kept the ones at the side seams and the center back so that when I attached the skirt, those areas would also stay put. Then it was time to put the boning in. I then attached the two skirt pieces to one another, and after that, on the front panel, I cut a V shape similar to the V at the front of the bodice. If I didn't do this, the front of the skirt might pull really weirdly at the front. Then I did my elastic trick where I measure my waist in elastic and stretch that as I do a zigzag stitch along the top of the skirt to create an easy gathering. After that, I attached the skirt to the bodice and hemmed it, and now it is time to show you the final result. All done! I was feeling pretty down about this project until like the 90% point where everything started coming together. So I'm pretty happy. I don't know how I feel about the thinner skirt. I ran out of fabric and I thought I wanted a slimmer skirt, but that's the one thing I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I could have used a little bit more, but even if I wanted it, I couldn't have had it. I ran out of yardage. I hate to admit this, but the basting really helped. I can admit when I'm wrong. I actually think the back is prettier than the original. I just really think that if you're going to do a corsetting or any kind of boning, it does just help to do a lacing in the back instead of a zipper. I think I did a pretty good job at recreating this. I'm pretty proud. I cannot believe I found like bed sheets that were almost perfect. I'm actually pretty proud at how close I got to the original. That's what I'm proudest of. I think it was like 85% there, and the changes that I made were either changes that I had to make or changes that I wanted to make. So I'm happy with my recreation. If you like this video and you want to continue seeing my content, be sure to subscribe, and also liking and commenting also really help me out. I hope you had a good time, and I hope to see you back here next time. Bye.